Guys, I got a Chevy Malibu here with grinding brakes. This thing is so bad that I can't move it. It's in reverse. The car doesn't want to move. If I go forward, it'll move a little bit, and then like the wedged brake pad gets locked up and the whole wheel locks up. Oh my god, that's not me hitting the brakes, guys. That's just the wheel locking up. So it's moving slowly. I'm trying to back it up here. I got it in reverse and I am almost flooring the gas pedal. What's going on here is the one wheel that really pulls this car forward is the one that the brake pad is locked up on it. This is crazy. Wow. This guy drove all the way over here like this. This is nuts. Oh, fuck. Wow. Oh my god. All right, I'm gonna leave it right here. This is as far as I want to go into the garage. So I'm about to take the wheel off and I could already see the brake pad sitting back there. You see it? So the reason why it sounds so bad and the car didn't want to move is because it's the piston on the caliper that's grinding into the rear of the rotor. There's still brake pedal pressure, so it hasn't blown out the seal for the caliper. Put new pads, new rotors on it, and I'm sure it'll work and it'll stop just fine. So here goes the piston extended on the caliper. You can see this groove right here. That's where this rubber boot should be, but it's been extended too far, so it just kind of pops out of its groove. Now I did try the caliper tool on it and the piston seems to be going in just fine, so I don't think any damage was caused right here. Eventually, if you keep driving them, they get so bad that it actually damages the seal on the inside, and then the brake fluid starts leaking out, and then you completely lose your brake pedal. So it goes from bad to worse real fast. Here's the inboard side of the rotor. You can see it's destroyed. Once you get the rotor off, we'll retrieve that pad that's stuck down there. Yeah, it looks like this is going to be fine. It's still going to be usable. The car's still going to stop. Of course, I'm still going to recommend that he replaces it. But, you know, 9 out of 10 times, people don't replace it. They figure it works and they just keep driving. Let's go ahead and add one more to the list. There we go. That's the number so far. So I got everything taken apart. The piston on the caliper went in just fine. And here goes the damage on the inboard side of the rotor. See how destroyed that thing is. And of course, the customer got in the zone, auto zone, and he got screwed over. Looks like they sold him the rear rotors for this car. Now, we did get the correct brake pads. They do fit the front of the car, but the rotors are wrong, so he's going to have to go back and return them. And I did the favor of measuring the rotor because this car has two different sizes. It basically has 296 millimeters and then like a 320 or something like that. So anyway, I went ahead and measured this rotor using my drum tool, and we get about 295. So his car is going to take the 296 millimeter rotors, and that'll be it. At this point, I'm just gonna go ahead and do what else I have to do. I gotta do an oil change on it. So since I'm waiting on rotors, I'm gonna go ahead and knock out this oil change. As you can see, it's pretty much all put back together. It's actually the next day. The owner had a difficult time trying to get the correct rotors for this car, but as you can see, we did end up getting them. Front left side's all done and buttoned up as well. So let me go ahead, pop the wheels on it, take it out for a test drive. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but the piston on the caliper went in just fine, no problems at all. So let's take it out for a test drive. The brakes feel great. There's no weird noises or anything, and obviously the car moves now. Got the oil change done, and I had to put tires. I had to put air in all of the tires because each tire had like 15 psi. Reset the oil life, and that's just about it. Everything's working good, so I'm gonna go ahead and park this turd and the owner can come pick it up. Today is a sad day. We got my cousin's cord here in the garage. This is the one that we bought like 4 or 5 years ago for him. So it's lasted all this time, but I think it's time to throw in the towel. Basically, it was leaking fuel, right? So I know how these things go on these type of cars. I've seen this problem before. All the lines rot away, and everything's so rot away, there's no clean place to, you know, splice in a line. And you could go as far back as the tank. And it's been an Illinois car its whole life, so everything is rotted underneath it. I mean, all the brake lines have already been replaced, and they're all just kind of jerry-rigged, and it's a nightmare. Yeah, so we messed with one fuel line, and the line breaks further down the line because it's just everything's right away. So it's just chasing our tail. Honestly, it just doesn't make sense to try to drop a gas tank on this thing, because if you look underneath this car how rotted away it is, it just doesn't make sense. So unfortunately, my cousin filled up on gas right before he came over here, so this thing is dumping out. Look at that, dumping out all its gasoline, and it's never ending, so it's got to do that for a full. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to dump gasoline on the floor, but it won't stop. I tried to pinch off the lines, and that's the best I got it. Before, it was a constant stream. Anyways, it's unfortunate because he just put a starter on it. It is where it is, though. It's time for this girl to die and go to the junkyard. Yeah, I just told my cousin I'm not one to quit or throw in the towel on a car, but sometimes you gotta know, when it's time. So I guess that's gonna be it for this old girl. And in case you're wondering, it's a 97. I think he paid just over $2,000 for it about 5 years ago, so I think he's got his money's worth out of it. And when he bought it, I believe this thing had close to like 250,000 miles on it, and over the past 5 years he's been driving it, obviously. So this thing easily has over 300,000 miles. I don't blame this car for wanting to die. Yeah, it's unfortunate, guys. I feel really bad because, of all the work he's put into this car to keep it on the road, all the work I've done to it, even the recent parts like the starter, the alternator. And I just feel so bad because of something so stupid like rotted away lines. Honestly, this is what lands a lot of cars in the salvage yard. It's because it just doesn't, on an older car like this, it just doesn't make sense to have a shop fix all the fuel lines, all the brake lines, and just, it's a lost cause. Well, we got to get this thing out the garage, and you can see the trail of fuel is leaving on the floor. Sorry guys, I'm not trying to hurt the planet here, but it's got to get out the garage, and it's the only way, even if it's leaking fuel. See the big old trail left behind. And the reason why the car is still running is because it's the return line that's busted and rotted away. Now they're all rotted away, but the line that feeds the engine, it's still connected and it's still holding fuel. So I hope that makes sense. Today I got a 2006 Ford Freestar. One of my customers just bought this car. He used to have a Toyota Avalon, and he went to church and they got wrecked. So he just recently bought this thing. It's a 06 with 190,000 miles on it, and it's got a crazy misfire. It sounds like one of those F-150s with the broken exhaust manifolds, and it doesn't sound good, and it's running like crap. He went to AutoZone, and of course it's got the misfire, so he wants a complete tune-up done. So we're getting like wires, ignition coil. There's just one coil that feeds all of the cylinders, spark plugs, things like air filter, cabin air filter, just basic stuff, guys. But apparently it's a pain in the butt to do a tune-up on these because like you have to remove the windshield wipers, the cowl, and all this stuff has to come out, so that's gonna suck. So of course there's one of those situations where he didn't pay me to look at the problem and figure out why it's misfiring. He just wants me to change parts on it, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm not looking into anything. I don't care if, for all we know, it could be a bad fuel injector that's causing a misfire. But again, he just wants a tune-up done. So the only thing I'm going to do is a not a relative compression test, a clear flood mode, so we can listen to the engine and make sure there isn't anything mechanical. And by the way, look at this thing like busted up like that. So go ahead and push the accelerator pedal all the way down and we can listen to it. Okay, so that's good. It sounds pretty consistent to me. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and do a full system health report, and we got a laundry list of codes here, guys. But let's go to the actual PCM. So incorrect key receiver used, like the transponder. System 2 lean on bank 1. Random misfire detected. Misfire detected cylinder 1, cylinder 3. Primary circuit fault ignition coil A. Ignition coil B, primary circuit, code start ignition timing performance, and that's everything for the PCM. So laundry list of codes going on here. Another kind of a red flag is look at the ignition cables, guys. These things look almost brand spanking new. So like I said, he just bought the car. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. It may have new spark plugs in it, but I don't know that. And the owner certainly doesn't know that. That's why he's having me change all these parts. And just because the parts are new doesn't mean anything. I've seen people damage brand new spark plugs trying to install them. I've seen people say they connect the wrong coil to the wrong spark plug and it's creating a misfire. I've done it myself as well. So there's so many problems, so many potential problems to go wrong here. So we're still gonna go ahead and do the tune-up because it's what the owner wants. It looks like the belt is relatively new, so that's good. So I'm starting to see a theme here. Everything is extremely loose, and I mean, things are broken, of course, right? Like the wiper motor, it's supposed to have 3 bolts holding it in. Only one of them was there. The other 2 are snapped off. I could see the bolt, like the rest of the bolt inside of there. And they are using zip ties right here to hold up the wiper motor. That's crazy. Hey, it is what it is, right? So yeah, and a mixed bags of everything. We got 8 mils and 10 mils all over this thing, just random bolts holding this thing in place. And in fact, it's ready to come off right now. So let me get this whole thing out of here. So I got the whole piece off of the car. You can see the wiper motor right here being held on with zip ties. I guess I didn't have to remove that one bolt on that was up here, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that back in. You know what's funny is once these bolts snapped off, you can see it right there. I mean, we might be able to extract those. You get what I'm saying? Whoever worked on this, if you snapped them off, fix it. I know it sucks, trust me, I know it sucks, but zip ties is no way to hold on a wiper motor, guys. Come on, this is horse. It's crazy. I don't know, I'll give it a go later on. Let's get this work done first, and if it doesn't drive me too crazy, then I'll attempt to extract those broken bolts. And there we have it. This thing opened up all kinds of space. Why is there brake fluid pouring out of here? Oh, look at the seal right there, see it? Yeah, it needs a new cap. Anyway, that's the least of our problems. All right, so I went online and looked up the cylinder numbers. So we got 1, 2, 3, and then like let's see, 5, 6, and 4. And looking at the new coil, I did buy a Denzel unit, so I just kind of matched everything up, and it does look like they have the ignition wires going to the correct place. But I am noticing a problem right here. If I get you guys in here real close, that's the ignition coil right there, and that thing is cracked wide open. I could actually see corrosion inside of the crack, so that ignition coil is no good. Who knows, that could be the root of all of our problems. And we do have codes for ignition coil circuit A and B. At this moment, I don't know if there's new spark plugs in it, but I'm assuming there is. So we'll find out right now. This thing is also just leaning right here on the alternator. I don't know what it's for. Some sort of probably a relay box. It's supposed to be mounted right here, but you can see the plastic tabs have snapped off. If they use zip ties to hold up the wiper motor, why didn't they use zip ties to hold this thing up? So I got the ignition coil out, and you could see all the cracks around it and all the areas where it was arcing. It's absolutely crazy. No wonder this thing was running like crap. I'm pretty confident that if we were to replace just the ignition coil and put everything back together, the car would probably run decent. So I got the very first spark plug out, and it is a Motorcraft part. Honestly, this thing doesn't look as new as I was expecting, so I'm not sure how old these things are. You can see a bunch of carbon built up on the tip. It looks moist, and it even smells like gasoline, which makes sense. Because if the ignition coil isn't working properly, it's just spraying fuel into the cylinders and it's not really igniting it, hence the misfires. Just looking at this spark plug, I mean, I'd say that the ignition cables look a lot newer, so it is possible that someone changed the wires and they did not change the spark plugs. Well, let me pull out the rest of them and we'll look at them a little bit closer. So I got all of the spark plugs out, as you can see, and there's 2 of them that stand out that look like they weren't really firing, which is this one right here, number 4, and number 3. Now the codes that we had on the scanner, of course we had a random misfire, but specifically it pointed out cylinders 1 and 3. 3, yeah, definitely looked like it's firing, but 1 doesn't look too bad. It looks like it might have been firing. The two, like I said, that stand out is 3 and 4. Anyway, that's all the spark plugs, and let's start getting the new ones in, and hopefully this thing will run a lot better. Alright, so I got all 6 spark plugs installed. I got the new ignition coil in, as well as the brand new wires, and the wires fit perfectly. Brand new OEM Motorcraft wires. Everything looks really nice. Now I reconnected the battery, and I want to go ahead and start the engine. All of this crap up here doesn't need to be on the car in order to start the engine, so I just want to make sure it's running good before we commit to putting all of this back together. So let's go in for that first crank. I don't see why it wouldn't or shouldn't start. Here you go. Alright, so of course it still has that very loud exhaust leak, but it feels much better. The steering wheel is not vibrating like crazy, and it's working. So yeah, a tune-up did fix it. The main issue was that bad ignition coil. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this thing off, and I'll put everything back together. And there you have it. I was able to extract the broken studs. You can see them right there. All I had to do was use a little bit of map gas right here, right where the bolts go into, one there and one there. And then I used the Knipex twin grips to get a real good bite on the side of the bolt and twist it out. There was a bunch of corrosion inside of here. I had to work it back and forth, but they're out, and now we could finally get rid of these damn zip ties. Run a tap inside of here, make sure the threads are nice and clean, and find 2 bolts that we could put in, and this thing's all set. And yeah, that's how it should be fixed. Don't fix like this with zip ties, guys. This is not the way. And there we have it. This bad boy is ready to go, like the new chicken fajita from Taco Bell. You know what I just thought about? Any of you guys remember the movie Shrek? The little boy with the big lollipop, he's like, do the roar, do the roar.
Do the roar.
You know, I'd rather not. It's my kid's birthday party.
Do the roar.
I'm dumb, don't mind me. So let me finish putting all of this mess back together. So I'm just about done here, but there's a few things I want to point out. Is that this whole piece right here was just kind of bouncing around, and that's because there should be like little plastic push-ins in each of these spots, and they were all missing. So I just grabbed what I have from my collection. They pretty much look like this, and I just put one in each spot going all the way down, and now this thing is nice and solid. I got a brand new cabin air filter installed. I'm gonna have to go ahead and put the cover on it. Got a new air filter in the engine, and as well as I noticed that a few bolts are missing. The hood hinges were actually bouncing around. That bolt was missing, so I had to find one in my collection. And the other hood hinge over here, this bolt was missing. This fender bolt was missing. So again, I just went looking through my stuff, and I found a bolt for everything. It's crazy how much stuff is missing off of this car. Oh, and the nut for the negative battery terminal was so rounded off that I had a hard time trying to get it off to loosen this thing. So once I finally got it off, I just threw it in the trash and found a brand new nut and got that in place, and now it works just how it should. I got the wipers reconnected. As you can see, they're just right where they belong, and it sounds way better. With this thing being held on with zip ties, you can imagine that motor kept wanting to torque over, and now there's none of that. It just sounds normal, just like it should. And also this box that was rubbing on the alternator, I just used 2 zip ties to hold it up, and it's nice and solid right there. Now I wanted to mount this side as well, but there's nothing around here to mount this to. I don't want to hook it on here because that's where the hood prop has to go. So I couldn't find anything else to hold up this side, but that's why I put 2 zip ties right here, and it's good enough, guys. It's not going anywhere. So it's way better than rubbing on the alternator. I don't know, I'm just really satisfied about the windshield wipers working just how they should now, and without all that noise. So it's been running for about 10 minutes. So far it's been pretty solid. Occasionally I'll like feel a little tiny misfire. I couldn't find any misfire data, like specific cylinder. I just found this one if it's currently misfiring, and for the most part it says no. Once in a while it'll switch over to yes. But looking at the fuel trims here, I could see why we had a lean code. Look at our long term, and keep in mind I did reset the codes and I reset the cam memory. That's a keep alive memory. So you can see with everything like a fresh start, about 10 minutes of running, we are at about 7% in the long term, and the short term down here not too bad. But when I first started the engine, the short term was about, I don't know, maybe like 9%, and when I raised the accelerator pedal, that 9% came down to around 0. So I'm suspecting our lean condition is due to some sort of a vacuum leak. So it's not the worst thing. Honestly, the truck or the van is running way better than how it came in. It sounds so much better. So yeah, I'm happy with it. So it's been running for about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes now, and you can see our check engine light just turned on. Here are the codes. So we have oxygen sensor codes, and that's it. Circuit high, bank 1, sensor 1. So if we go look at that, or the 2 upstream sensors, which I already got them right here, there goes our sensor 1 on bank 1. Look at that thing, just stuck at 2.52. Bank 2 sensor 1 seems to be working fine. This one, that's crazy. Alright, so out driving this van, and it's driving pretty dang good compared to how it came into the garage. If it wasn't for that pesky exhaust leak, it would be halfway decent. But with a van with 190,000 miles on it, there are a few other issues. The brakes don't feel too great. I feel like I have to push the pedal way too hard to get this thing to stop. The steering wheel is a little bit crooked just to go straight. I'd imagine that all the suspension on this thing is completely shot and it all needs to be reworked. I even experienced, like, at 40 miles per hour, you get like a crazy like death wobble. The steering wheel just goes crazy. And I don't think it's related to the brakes, because I don't feel any pulsing or anything coming through the brake pedal while it's happening. It's really once you get up to speed, the steering wheel just starts doing this. So I think that's just all steering and suspension related. It's just completely worn out. If he wants to get that work done, obviously we'll have it back in the garage, and we'll see if a set of oxygen sensors is going to make a difference on this turd. Anyway, that's it for this one. I'm going to go ahead and park it. So today I'm actually messing with the CRX. The power lock stopped working on the passenger door, and it hasn't been working for a few months, and I'm just finally getting around to it because it's not a big issue. The driver door has been working just fine with the key fob. So basically, you know, you hit the key fob and the passenger door isn't doing anything. So anyway, it's nice that I have this connector right here. I remember I went to the junkyard and I got these OEM connectors off of another car, and I spliced them in right here. So now we have basically an access point, and I put power and ground directly to here, and the actuator works just fine. And then on this side, we should have a ground on both wires, and we only have a ground on one of them. I believe it's going to be the white wire has its ground, but the power, or not the power, the red wire has no ground coming off of it. So, you know, the line goes through the door over here, comes out back there, goes into the body of the car, and it connects right here. So it's these two like bullet connectors. And if I grab my power probe, we have our ground, and another one, we have our ground. So that means from right here to right here, that red wire is broken somewhere. And if I had to guess, if I had to put my money somewhere, it would be right here inside of here. So I don't know where it's broken yet, but we do have a broken wire. So here's where I'm at. I got the power probe connected, and I got a wire coming off it with 2 alligator clips on the ends. You can see my other end is over here. I'm just front probing this connector on the red wire. This is the one we're missing our ground. So you can see how I got that set up. And at this point, if the power probe finds a ground, it would make that noise. So now it was time to just start wiggling the harness until the power probe makes that noise, because I'm not expecting a full-blown open like a broken wire. I'm expecting a fatigued wire and it's just not making good contact. So by doing this, you intermittently make and break that contact, and we would hear it on the power probe. So I came inside of here, start moving all of this around, and absolutely nothing. So it's time to come inside of here. And then I finally made it to the kind of final stop right before the brain box of the power lock system. Is this green wire right here. This is the same wire that we're testing. It just changes colors because I don't need to explain myself. This is the wire, guys. So let me show you what I found. Let me go ahead and turn off that beeping so it doesn't annoy you guys. But as you can see, as I push the green wire into this connector, it makes and breaks contact. Our problem is right here. Apparently when I made this connector, I didn't have a good contact or a good crimp, whatever you want to call it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this fixed, and this should take care of our power locks not working on the passenger door. So I cut out that bad connector and I put a different one in, as you can see right there. Of course, I still have to heat shrink over it, but it is a solid connection now. And just for a proof of concept, it's not working. Now guys, let me tell you one thing. With these aftermarket kits, it's always a great idea to install connectors like this. See, because the way this kit comes is the wires come off of the actuator, and they expect the wire to go fully to the brain box without any interruptions, and that's not good. Okay, if you need to diagnose or test something because you have a problem like I had here, it's nice to be able to test at the connector and start eliminating portions of it, so you know what's good and what's not. You get what I'm saying? So it's a really good idea. I just went to the junkyard and pulled this off of another car. Not sure, it's just a OEM type connector. You can find plenty of good connectors online, so that's a must-have with systems like this. And I know all of this right here looks like a rat's nest, and this wire right here failing just tells me that I need to rework all of this and get it looking nicer and be a lot more reliable than this mess that I have going on here. What I want to do is find a large bulk connector, like an original part off another car, basically something like this, but it has a lot more than 2 wires. You know, let's just say I find a connector that has 10 wires in and out on both sides, and I could get rid of all of this mess right here and just have one connector that connects and disconnects everything. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure if that's even possible with the way all these wires are being routed, but you know, I need to do something because this doesn't look good. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead, put the door panel back on it. Of course, the power locks is not working, so that's all I came here to do today, and I'm just glad it's fixed, and I'll tackle all of that mess some other day.